Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and today we will be updating my tight end rankings from the video from a couple of months ago, a month plus ago. This is not the first time that they've been updated in that period of time, so if you do ever want to go and look at my most recent rankings or just look at the rankings as they are currently, they are up on the website, www.theFFforge.com. There's a link down in the description directly to the tight end rankings. A couple of points of order before we get into this video. First of all, if you are just getting into the fantasy football season, you haven't thought about it for the last several months, and you're coming across this video, if you want a refresher on what happened last season, some of the players who may have done better than you recall. I know oftentimes after a long off season, I look back and I'll notice some players did better than I thought they had. I forgot about some players and how poorly they had done, etc. So I do like those refreshers, and there are two ways that I'm going to let you know that you could check out. First of all, of course, you could always go and look at, I think the best way to look at it is via the average fantasy points per week on pretty much any website of your choice. However, I do have a system called Equalized Value, my EV system. There's a link down in the description to the page on my website where you can go to each of the positions EV charts that I have. The main benefit, I believe, in my EV system is that it accounts for and rewards consistency more so than just average fantasy points per week, which, especially in such a small sample set that we get each season, the average fantasy points per week can be influenced heavily by one or two big weeks or one or two terrible weeks. And I will also provide you, I believe it's in this corner, two different cards will come up to videos that I did after, in the early portion of the offseason, after last season. Those videos will be to the top overrated or overvalued and the top undervalued tight ends from last season. So that's also a nice little quick recap and a way to look at my EV system and see who might have been a little bit easier to predict than other players than the average fantasy points per week might suggest on a week in and week out basis. The other point of order here is that if you have any draft strategy video topics that you would like me to cover over this next month, please put those recommendations down in the description, and if I get a chance, I will follow through and do a video on that topic if possible. So let's get right into the tight ends. And up on the screen, you are currently seeing the rankings as of the end of my last video, what you would have seen as my tight end rankings then. Obviously, things have shifted since then, and I went through for each of these positions before this video and did one more big rankings update. News is coming out every day now with training camps starting, so things are going to be moving more and more, which is why you can always check out my website for the updated rankings, link down in the description. Now, big change right off the bat is we're going to put Kyle Pitts down a tier here. We're going to have Travis Kelce in his own tier, Mark Andrews in his own tier. The main reason that I didn't have Mark Andrews in his own tier or up in Travis Kelce's tier with him is that new offense that they're bringing in. I don't know for sure how much that's going to impact the fantasy value for Mark Andrews while he is healthy, but I do know that I'm still comfortable with the fact that his floor is like tight end 3, 4, maybe 5, even in that new offense. That said, I'm confident in what I'm going to get from him, whereas we start to get to question marks already here with our third tier, but Kyle Pitts is still going to be my tight end 3, have not changed that. But the first big jump up is going to be George Kittle, moving up 2 spots ahead of Hawkinson, ahead of Goddard, and this really just has to do with some confidence since the time that I made that video that Brock Purdy's going to be the starter even if he misses a week or 2 or 3. With that little extra layer of confidence, I think he's better for the passing attack, consistency-wise and just overall than Trey Lance is for fantasy purposes for that offense. We'll continue to follow that team in the offseason and adjust rankings as so. Now, the next big move is going to be Dallas Goedert moving down into my next tier, moved him out of this tier, and that has everything to do with DeAndre Swift joining the team. That concerns me for the consistency week in and week out of Dallas Goedert. I don't think he's going to be quite the same guy that we've become accustomed to over the last 2 seasons from him. Even last season was a little bit inconsistent, and I just expect that to be exaggerated, a little bit of a lower floor, and maybe not less of a ceiling, but hitting that ceiling less and or going down and below his floor in a few more games than last season. And there's no change for a little bit here. Pat Fryermuth in at my tight end 7. Still holding strong with my beliefs of Greg Dulcich in at my tight end 8. Tight end 9 is David Njoku. And then we do have a change. We're going to put Darren Waller up ahead of Evan Ingram. I have concerns about the consistency for Evan Ingram, and there is the possibility for Darren Waller of him being the primary target in that New York Giants offense. I was a little bit hesitant. Injury concerns for Darren Waller putting him back there, but ultimately, I don't like to base too many of my decisions based on injury concerns unless they're coming into the season with an injury. Dalton Schultz going to remain here, but Chigoziem Okonkwo, with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins into that offense, has moved out of that tier. A little less confident about how involved, about his floor. Once again, maybe not necessarily about the ceiling, but just consistency. I don't think it's quite going to be there to where he is like one of the top 12 guys or 13 guys it was. One of the main tight ends that I really feel comfortable even walking out of the draft with one tight end. Which brings us to our next move up. Tyler Higbee moving up one spot. I think I had moved him down at one point since my last rankings, but then I've jumped him back up. Dalton Kincaid moving back one spot. He's a guy who I don't feel ultra comfortable with, a little bit of a concern about. I mean, a rookie tight end, basically, is what it comes down to. But he is a rookie receiving tight end. I do believe that they brought him in there primarily because of his receiving abilities. Do he, James Cook, and Dawson Knox eat into each other a little bit? I think that's very possible. So I'm not very confident in even where I have Dalton Kincaid ranked, but I don't want to ignore the potential there because, come week 6, if he's one of the top 8 tight ends from that point on in the season, I wouldn't be shocked either. I'm just not necessarily betting on it happening. Then Cole Kmet still have right back in the same spot, and we are going to move a big jump up from my rankings. A guy who I actually removed, it's Tyler Conklin, very shortly before I made that rankings video. I had moved him back and then all the way out of making it into the cut for that video. I've moved him back in. My projections love him a lot. Heard a little bit of talk from some other experts that have reinstalled, I don't want to say my faith in Tyler Conklin, because he's one of those guys where when it comes to being on the board and drafting him, I'm probably going to say, I think I'll wait for some of these more upside guys. But there is, it's a good opportunity for Conklin this season in an offense that I think will be good. And with a better quarterback, everything going that, he could be a fantasy asset. That brings us to Gerald Everett, who does not move here. I think one or two guys maybe have moved ahead of him. But Gerald Everett, there's another wide receiver in that offense. I think they want to get that offense a little bit more going deeper on throws, getting the ball into the hands of the wide receivers, new offensive coordinator there. I will say also the injuries last season had a huge part to do with the fantasy success of, I believe, both Everett, and seriously, not to take anything away from the next player, but also Austin Eckler, I think, benefited from that, which is why I'm a little less confident on him. Then we're going to see a big boost up coming for Cade Otton, and he is coming right behind Gerald Everett. He is not a projection guy. My projections don't love him, don't necessarily love the Buccaneers in general. However, I really do like him a lot. I'm a believer in the talent. I think there is an opportunity here in year 2 for him to be another guy who's a fantasy asset. If that offense, if we could have more faith in that offense, I would put him higher in the quarterback throwing to him. But still a great opportunity that I don't want to overlook for him. Then this looks like Taysom Hill because it is, but it's not supposed to be. I don't have a face down here for Jake Ferguson. He represents Jake Ferguson, and so he moved back a spot in the rankings here, at least with moving Cade on up. But Jake Ferguson's a guy who I believe in the McCarthy offense in Dak Prescott as far as their ability to have fantasy tight ends that are viable to play top 12 very often. And so, second-year tight end, just like Cade Otton, I have some trust in that. It's very close between these two, but I think even Cade Otton is a better receiving tight end anyways. I have moved Luke Musgrave up ahead of Sam Laporta. Just think that the opportunity is a little bit greater in Green Bay for him than Sam Laporta, as far as maybe not necessarily having a higher floor, but I think the potential to have a similar floor is definitely there, as well as I like the ceiling a little bit better for him, especially on the unpredictable basis of he's a big play guy. So I think he could definitely have some big games, and there's an opportunity for him coming into this young offense, new quarterback, to be a bit of the reliable blanket target for him. Jordan Love as well. And that's going to bring us to our final tier with Irv Smith, Hayden Hurst, and Noah Fant. And this is just kind of my you know what you're getting tier of guys. For the most part, with Irv Smith, I think we're getting something like what we got from Hayden Hurst last season, which is because of the depth of the wide receivers there, because we do have a quarterback who really gets the ball out to his wide receivers more so far than a guy like Gerald Everett in at tight end. I don't see how you're ever going to predict which weeks to play him, which was the big problem for Hayden Hurst last season. Then we have Hayden Hurst going to Carolina, a team with a rookie quarterback who could find himself relying on the tight end. My biggest concern about that is, does have Adam Thielen out on the flat as well, guy who could serve like a proto security blanket for him. So I like the floor, but also it's probably not going to be a very high-powered offense. Touchdowns will become hard to come by, so just a floor guy, in my opinion, who, if you need 6 points, can probably get you that a lot of weeks, but maybe not a whole lot more most weeks. And then Noah Fant, I expect to be similar to last season, pretty unpredictable, has a ceiling, but not a very common ceiling. Brought in Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think that, if anything, should hurt that situation, but maybe could make this offense a little bit more potent, so maybe a couple more touchdowns for Noah Fant throughout the season, and maybe a couple more big plays, things just opening up down the center of the field a little bit easier for him with Jackson Smith-Njigba running across the field. But that is the most recent tight end rankings. I will put up the rankings up on the screen so you can see those. You can pause if you would like to read through those rankings. And this is the end of the video, so thank you very much. Please like, comment, subscribe if you've made it this far into the video. It's all very much appreciated. It's been nice to see that subscriber count ever growing this offseason, so I appreciate it very, very much. And peace out. I will see you later on today with the wide receivers video.